No intro today. I've got information to give you. The Battlefield 1 files have been mined, combed through, and away at, and we have some solid information as to what weapons are coming in the final game. And that's due out in about a month or so now. There's some really interesting inclusions in here, plenty of weapons we haven't seen yet. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, I'll start with the pistols. We all know about the M1911 and the P08 already, and we've seen some sightings of others during DICE videos and trailers that they've released as well. But for the sake of clarity, I'm going to go through all of them are mentioned in the game files. I have no information if these are all to be included in the final game, but we may as well tick them off anyway. So first of all, the 1911 and the P08, both of those were in the alpha and the beta. And then we'll move on to the Bulldog revolver. This is a British pocket revolver in 1882 by Philip Webley and Son. It was actually copied many times by manufacturers in Europe shortly after. The Borchardt C93 is making an appearance as well. We saw this in the game trailer. The weapon was the forerunner to the Luger pistol, and you will see many similarities in their design. Next, Gasser M1870, an Austro-Hungarian revolver in the 1870s and adopted by their cavalry regiment. The weapon was officially taken out of service in 1898, but many Austrian troopers carried this weapon during battles in World War I due to its heavy stopping power. Next, we have the Mauser 1940. This is a German-produced cartridge pistol chambered for 32 ACP round. Certainly got power there. And after that, we have the Colibri. Now, this is rather an interesting one. I'm sure you can tell from the pitch. The Colibri pistol chambers a 2.7 by 9mm round, and it's said to be one of the smallest pistols ever produced. And it was invented by an Austrian watchman in the 1860s and was produced, it's said, for self-defense and concealment. Now, I can't wait to see what this looks like in Battlefield 1, because in real life this thing is absolutely tiny. Imagine seeing that in your player's hand in Battlefield 1. After that, we have the Beretta M15. It's an Italian cartridge pistol built to supersede the other sidearms the Italian Empire were using at the time. And then Roth Steyr M1907. This semi-automatic pistol was one of the first ever produced to be adopted by the land army of a major power. The Austro-Hungarian cavalry units were issued these weapons during the war, and it stayed in service all the way through to 1945. The Colt Model 93 Hammer is next. This semi-automatic pistol, designed by John Browning in the early 1900s, despite the name, does actually have a hammer on the weapon. It's just under the rear of the slide. This allows the pistol to be in pockets and removed easily without getting caught on anything. Another revolver now, the Smith & Wesson Model 3. This was produced in the 1860s and was modified by two major powers at the time. The US Schofield model, who modified it to suit his cavalry needs, and the Imperial Russian Army, who ordered 4,000 of these with the Russian 44 caliber round chambered in it. After that, we have the Mars pistol. This British design developed in the 1900s by Hugh and was manufactured by Webley and Scott, and it was rejected as a replacement of the Scott revolver by the British War Office due to significant recoil, muzzle and mechanical complexity. Now, it won't be represented in Battle 1, it's just to give variety. And then, of course, we have the Webley revolver. This was the standard issue British Empire sidearm at the start. The Mark V variant was the standard issue, but more of the Mark IVs were actually in service at the time. In May 1915, the Mark VI became flagship and stayed in its place for the rest of the war. Two more pistols. First of all, we have the Howder pistol, and this is a generic name for large caliber handguns used in the Far East and Africa during the 9th century. The name Howdah comes from the large platform mounted on the back of an elephant. Battlefield 1's very own elephant gun. And lastly, we have the Bodeo 1889, an Italian-used revolver issued to Italian soldiers during the First World War. This was one of the weapons superseded by the M15 that I mentioned earlier. Now, that's a lot of pistols. 13 in fact. Are all of them going to be included in the base game for Battlefield 1? I'd find it strange if they were, but then again, I'm not going to complain about having more weird and wonderful things from the era to play around with. Next, we're moving on to the primary weapons. Again, I'll mention the ones we already know about from the alpha and the beta, and then we'll move on to the stuff. And first up, we have the assault class. We have the Beretta M1918, the automatic, coming in factory, infantry, and trench defense. And then we also have the MP18 coming in artillery, experimental, and variants. These two were in the beta that you've just played, along with the Remington 10 shotgun, and that comes in factory, hunter, and heavy variants. New weapons coming to the class. First up, we have the Hellriegel 1915. This Austro-Hungarian weapon was considered one of heavy machine guns during the war, and it chambered the 9mm stay-around fed via a belt, which was water. In Battlefield 1, was in the factory and artillery variants, and interestingly, saw this in the com trailer. The player holding it got flattened by the train. Next, we have the Winchester Model 1897 shotgun, coming in hunter, light infantry, and assault variants. This is known commonly as the trench gun, and one of the weapons the Harlem Hellfighter soldiers used in some of the Battlefield 1 key art will be a specific Harlem Hellfighter skin for the 1897 as well. And lastly, the Browning Auto 5. We saw this in weapons trailers that went out on the Battlefield channel, and it comes in the pistol and light infantry variants. It was the first successful semi-automatic shotgun ever produced and remained in action until 1998. Next up, we're moving on to the medic class, quickly to cover off some of that we know about. The Seltzer M1916 rifle, in factor, artillery, and sharpshooter variant. The Mondragon rifle, coming in marksman, artillery, and light infantry variants. The Che Rigotti, coming in factory, artillery, and trench variant. And the Winchester 1907, coming in factory, auto, and trench variants. It seems there's only one mention of another rifle coming to the medic class at the moment, and that's the Remington Model 8 rifle, coming in factory, special, and shooter variants. Another weapon designed by John Browning. It was originally named the Remington auto-loading rifle, but was changed to the Model 8 in 9/11. Moving on again to the support class, and we have a couple of new weapons, both of which I think you'll be very happy to see. Let's check off the other weapons first of all, though. The Benny Mercier coming in a gunner, artillery, light infantry variants. Then you've got the heavy MG, the Bergman MG15N, coming in low weight infantry and suppressor variants. The Madsen MG coming in light infantry and variants, and the Lewis gun coming in low weight artillery and suppressor variants. The two new guns kind of sit in the middle, nowhere near being the heaviest and nowhere being the lightest that are on offer, and first of which is the Hort automatic rifle. Now, I'm sure I've butchered the pronunciation of the name, but this is a Canadian weapon produced in 1916 and was built to meet the shortfall of light guns that the Canadian Expeditionary Force had at the time. It comes in low weight and artillery, and I'm sure plenty of Canadians out there who said they weren't being represented in Battlefield 1, well, now you have a weapon that you can use. And secondly, and this is the one you'll really like, the BAR, the Browning Automatic Rifle. This was produced by John Brown, a direct replacement to the Sholshat and Lenny Mercier, which were issued to US soldiers in Europe in favour of an all-American weapon. The BAR comes in gunner, light infantry and trench variants, and this weapon, along with the scout rifles, are probably the ones I'm looking forward to using most of all. Onto the scout class, I do have a few miscellaneous weapons to touch on again, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Again, I'll run through these scout rifles that we all know about and then move on to the new stuff. First up, the Winchester 1890 coming in rifleman, marksman and trench variants. Then the Lefield Mark III, the SMA, coming in rifleman, carbine and sharpshooter variants. Then the Gewehr 90 coming in factory, and sharpshooter variants. And finally, the Gewehr M95 in rifleman, carbine and sharpshooter variants. This new weapon we got a tiny glimpse of during the weapon shows put up on the Battlefield YouTube channel, and I'm sure you've all guessed it anyway. It's the 1903 Springfield rifle. American-made, produced in numbers north of 1 million. Truly one of the most iconic rifles in existence. This is the scout rifle that I want to use. It comes in experimental, sharpshooter and marksman variants. And finally, some miscellaneous weapons. We know about the C96 carbine being in the tanker and pilot classes. That's joined by the Frommer-Stop pistol and the Piper revolving line. Both of these will be available to the tanker or pilot classes in the game, seemingly nowhere else. And finally, we have the Martini Henry, a lever-actuated rifle that will be one of your choices in the cavalry class. Like the Frommer-Stop and the Piper, this weapon does not appear to be available to any of us in the game at the moment. That is one long list of weapons, and don't forget, this will still not be the final list that we get for the game. This was only taken from the beta files and therefore may not include all of the information coming in the final game. Plenty more information in the data dump about vehicles, weapon skins, gadgets, dog tags, so be sure to stick around a week as I try and bring you as much of that information as I can. It just didn't make sense to put it all in this video. This one is already 13 minutes long. But thank you very much for watching. Leave me your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think of some of these news. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
All credit and copyrights go to Westie. If you want to check out his channel, it's Westie, so just look it up. Really great channel, love him, and I hope you guys enjoyed.